Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brad from Headbangers Podcast. Today we've had Enrico from Hideous Divinity on. They're an atmospheric death metal band. They released an incredible new album, which is Unextinct. It focuses a lot on atmosphere, as well as blending some of the brutality, but keeping it fresh with longer songs. We have a lot of interesting conversations on here. It's lyrical themes and how movies have greatly inspired it, from David Lynch in the past to now Nosferatu, and how he's managed to blend that for the new age. We talk about the war on AI and how that's changing album art and what his opinion is on that, as well as just all things to do with the band and some fun tour stories as well. If you like the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you listen on streaming services, leave us a rating because it does help us out in the algorithm. And without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Headbangers Podcast, where your hosts Nathan and Brad. Here today, we're joined by Enrico from Hideous Divinity. How you doing, man? To start off with.
Hey there, nice talking to you.
Hell yeah, man. So we like to start off with a little icebreaker on the show. What's your funniest gig or tour story that you can recall?
Oh, we'll start right off the bat with something interesting, thank goodness. Funny. Oh boy. No, you caught me off guard. I mean, funny, relatively funny was 1 year ago when we played Metal Days. There was this torrential rain. There was basically it was a hurricane. I mean, in Europe, we should start calling things the way they are, like in the US. It was a hurricane, okay? Now, summertime festivals in Europe, there's a there's always a big chance because they're all in Northern Europe that you'll get a tornado or a hurricane or something. And of course, that's what happened at Metal Days in Slovenia. And the lucky thing was that we were one of the few bands that played indoor, like with a roof. There was a huge tent, and this festival. Well, so many things were just done wrong at this festival, and one of them was simultaneous stages pointing one at each other. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? That's basic acoustics. You don't do one stage facing the other. So, and I remember that, of course, the headlining band at that moment when we played in the smaller stage was Keep of Callous, and that I worship. I really wanted to see, but there were like, I don't know, half an hour of it was hell made water, and the result was that we were like, oh my goodness, we're doing so good. The show is so successful. We're dragging people from outside. And they were literally escaping the tornado and
Oh my God.
find it the only place where they could, they could just be safe. But it was cool. It was a great concert. And they had to stop the Keep of Callous in concert outside. They played like two songs and they were like, that's it, we're out. And that was the cool part. The not so cool part was when we got off the stage where the backstage used to be. There was a river, and I'm not kidding you. There was a river. The only things that were saved were the ones that, by some sort of intuition, we left them hanging like above the ground.
Thank God.
And, and then we left the next day, but people just stayed out partying, and those were the ones that had to be rescued by the Slovenian army. Because the next day we actually left because it was a long way back to Rome. And when it was like 10:30, it was, of course, it was pouring rain, but it was doable. When it was like 10:30 in the morning, we were already on the subway and we started to receive videos of what was going on. And it was like an emergency, that sort of evacuating people kind of a thing, people sleeping in gyms with the army providing them with blankets and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that was a bullet dodge. But then again, I think all the crazy concerts when we toured Ukraine and Russia, we saw a lot of weird people, a lot of weird. It looks like we are able to, I don't know, there's something with Hideous Divinity and the ability to attract weird people. Uh, I don't know, but yeah, oh, so many crazy things on that tour.
Wow.
Literally, we were there, I don't know, when was that? A couple of months before Euromaidan. It was, we can say it was just a few months before a war that started, not 2 years ago, but 10 years ago. So,
Man, that's a lot. The Metal Days thing, I'm really surprised. Like, I didn't even see anything about that, but they must have obviously been in like Loudwire or Metal Hammer or something like that. But Also, I'm surprised that I didn't realize that we had like tornadoes and hurricanes in Europe, but I
Oh, you
guess
want to know you want to know the funniest thing? But you do remember last summertime what happened in Bakken, right?
yeah, I'm familiar with that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Bakken, I mean, they closed the roads, then they stopped people from coming in. So a lot of people actually they had to go back. They already paid their super expensive ticket. And Metal Days, they were like, no problem. We're gonna save your day. So you can come to Metal Days for free. Just show your Bakken concert. And I'm sure so poor son of a bitch actually went from the hurricane in Vaken back to Slovenia just to find another hurricane. And
That's so unfortunate.
uh, I mean, sometimes, life is just giving you signs. You should have stayed home, man. So I feel really sorry for those because it was a cool initiative, but everything else was wrong. So, yikes.
Can you imagine though, just being that one guy being like, "Oh, that were hell there. I hope Metal Days is much better." You're like, "What the fuck? Like, what are the chances? Two
Exactly.
hurricanes."
Yeah. But trust me, chances are going to get higher and higher because whether you like the idea or not, the climate is changing, and
Oh yeah.
we concentrate all these festivals in Europe in the same season. And now you may have like crazy weather in June or in July or in August. And I was really surprised with what happened at Bakken because I thought, my goodness, that's not even a festival; it's a multinational, and still the rain can be a problem for a festival like that. Just move the place. It's still going to be back and people are still coming. There must be a reason, but I don't know. I don't understand.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. One thing that I wanted to ask you as well is, whilst doing research for the interview, I noted in a interview from Metal Injection in 2017, you actually mentioned you conducted a study into extreme vocals. What were some of the things that you found that
No, that's this.
surprised you during
I'm
that?
so, I'm sorry. That's Enrico the singer. I'm
Oh,
just
apologies.
Enrico the guitar player.
Apologies,
No,
apologies.
but I can tell you about him. I mean, Enrico. I can tell you a bit of his background because if you think about it, Enrico's been Enrico's a doctor and is a voice doctor, but I mean not simply on paper. He studied that. He studied several years medicine at university, did specialized, he did several crazy trainings and stuff. That's what it takes in Italy to become a doctor. And I think he was one of the very first ones in our country that started saying, okay with the attitude, okay with the death metal attitude, but there are things about the voice that if you don't pay attention to them, you're just going to stop singing. And in some cases, you may risk your voice in general because it is an unnatural way of singing that has some rules. We had the luck to be on tour, to tour with Cannibal Corpse, to tour with Vader, to tour with people that, they've been doing that, if you think about the vocals, for like 30, 40 years sometimes. And we're talking about survivors here, meaning people like Peter from Vader or George Fisher or you name it, Dave Vincent. Uh, they they managed to learn something and keep on doing that for several years, or I don't know, Ross Olin from Immolation. They didn't have a method. Their method was the instinct of singing like that, and kind of there was something in their mind because when we asked George Fisher, he said, well, there's something in my mind that made me kind of avoid mistakes that could damage my voice. And there's another cool thing about George Fisher. He said, well, I was doing, how did you start singing? Because that's a question you want to ask to George Fisher. You want to ask to Corpse Grinder. It said, well, it was me. I've always been a crazy fan of death. And I remember being in my cellar or something, doing air guitar with a piece of wood and imitating Chuck Schuldiner. So even a guy like George Fisher, he didn't do any trick with his hands on the microphone, the cap mic or stuff. So he learned simulating, like doing air guitar So that's how we learned. And Enrico conducted a lot of studies, researches, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. And back in the beginning, it was treated really bad by the, let's say, the Italian death metal community, because it was like, dude, what you're trying to do? You're trying to teach something like that's not something that you teach. It's all about attitude. Wrong. It was wrong. Because you can have a natural voice, but when it comes to preserve that voice, because you want to play more than one show and then lose it, you should do a certain training. You should know certain things. And it took him a lot of time, and he had to swallow a lot of shit before people will actually start paying attention to him. I think the thing that started was when singing teachers will come to him saying, more and more kids that will listen, I don't know, to Linkin Park or Machine Head or just popular people, they're asking me to do that. How do I teach them to do this? So that's how it became something more popular, which is right now it's kind of obvious. But if you think about it, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, which is when 20 years ago at least, when Enrico graduated, when he became a doctor, it was not that obvious at all. It was all about, nah, you can teach that. You're not supposed to teach that. Yeah, he could tell you more.
It's interesting though, to be fair, because like, I guess, compared to clean singing, there's not as much resources and material out there to try and teach you how to do it properly and not damage your voice. And obviously you can say, oh, I'll do it with attitude, but that's not really going to save your voice from getting blown out, which has happened to like, countless singers. It's super dangerous if you don't do it right. So I think it's good that there's studies out there now and things like Enrico were doing, just like trying to spread awareness and do it healthily and do it well.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
again, people do it wrong and it doesn't end well.
Yeah, that's how it is. And I think it's great that more and more teachers are just teaching that. It also shows how popular this music has become, that I may not like it, but maybe of every 50 new fans of Lorna Shore, there are 5 new fans that will get into the rotten stuff. So there's always hope, I suppose. We
Oh
should
yeah.
thank Lorna Shore.
Oh yeah, you always need like those bands that have like a viral moment that then gets people into the small. So it's like all boats raised with the tide sort of thing. It's
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that.
one thing that I wanted to ask you as well is that the visuals on More Than Many Never Won. I read that it was obviously all done practically with chemistry, physics, and everything like that. Was that something that you, off the bat as the band, went, we want to actually do this for real? Or was it like a case of you had the concept for the visuals in your head, but you managed to find someone that could orchestrate that for real?
No, to be honest, I wish it was the second, but we weren't that good. We weren't that visionary. This kind of say the visual, the idea comes from the creative director of Eclipse Studio, Dema Novakova. What she did was, what she had this idea, and she already did some shots about magnet powder just moving around, being attracted by a very strong magnet, and moving around and being mixed with chemicals, and just observe on a small petri dish with macro lenses, with cameras, what would happen. And the effect was like, whoa. And to be totally honest, she showed that to us many years ago, but I was like, I don't know if our music actually suits that. Then, of course, detached from the idea of the video, with the last 2 albums, especially with the last album, we took this turn towards more solemn, like this sort of a royal stride, kind of a march, something that I like to call like a river of lava, something that super heavy but also slow. Oh, people are complaining all the time, oh, songs are too long. Yeah, long songs, long tracks on the new album. And I thought, okay, this may be the moment. Then we thought about blood. We thought about introducing blood in the equation. And then we found out that while we were making this video, we were in the middle of a debate about artificial intelligence and the role artworks, videos. Is that right? Is that wrong? What's going to happen? And I think we had something to say about that. Me personally, I'm going to say something totally personal about it. I think it's part of progress. I don't want to feel like the guy that 25 years ago was complaining about the internet because people wouldn't buy CDs. The world is changing. You have to adapt. You have to evolve. About artificial intelligence, though, I don't fully trust people using artificial intelligence say they want to do for artistic reasons, while the truth is that they want to save money, not paying an artist.
I mean, that's it, isn't it, right?
I'm sorry?
That's it, isn't it, right? Just I think it is just the not wanting to pay people, like, because it's a cheaper route, isn't it?
Of course, if you have a cool idea, if you think about how much we paid for all the materials that you see in a petri dish, well, that was like, I don't know, less than 100 euros, or it was a cheap video. If you think about it, if you have a cool idea, with artificial intelligence, it may be cool. But I don't know. I think it's like seriously, when you're doing a record, it's like when you're having a tattoo. You're not supposed to save on something like that. How many records are you going to do in your life? Don't you think that when you do a record, you want to pay the right amount of money to go to the right studio, to have the perfect production that's in your mind, or at least get close to that? Don't you think that it's a good idea to pay a cool artist to give you something that, that's going to stay forever and going to make super cool T-shirts and merch out of it? I think it's the way of things. There's nothing wrong, for example, in taking band photos with a mobile, because today we have mobiles that are actually better than reflex cameras. But maybe if we want to call picture, you need a photographer. We are part of an environment where everybody that's doing his job should be treated as a guy that's working and paid accordingly. I think. I know it's a very social, rather dangerous topic, but I mean, okay, you did an artificial intelligence video and you save $1,000. So what now? What you gonna do with that?
Yeah, I agree with you, to be fair. And there's a bit of a gray area because I can kind of understand, sometimes if a band doesn't have like, much resources or time, to be able to put into a music video, I kind of get it. But at the same time, it's like, I do a lot of video editing when I'm doing music videos, or I'm doing like the podcast, or I'm doing other kinds of stuff. And it's like, but I could easily just get like an AI to edit it all together and it'll probably be quite good. But then it's like at the end of it, like I'm not gonna feel like I've really accomplished anything because it's just like it's not mine, is it really? It's some robots done it. So it's like you don't get the proudness and the satisfaction of doing something creative and doing something with the work. So, and that, like I said as well, artists, they are living people that, they're trying to get a living, what they're doing. And, I think there's some uniqueness. And you also get in situations now where, a band will do an AI artwork and another band will do an AI artwork and they'll be two exactly the same. And people are like, well, which one's who's copied who? It's like, no, and it's just, you've probably just had the same search for what you wanted and come up with the same thing.
Yeah, it could happen. Probably. Then again, it's like, I don't want to be one of those super annoying people. Artificial intelligence, let's make a crusade burn. I'm just telling you that there are some things that I've seen about done with artificial intelligence, and for the fact that they were just portraying the world in this creepy way, they really resonated in me for what they are, which is there is some deformity in the background, which made me think about the perception that we have of dreams sometimes. So I'm totally open. I'm so curious about what's going to be next. There are, of course, things that I don't fully agree with is when you use it in a cheap way. So again, whatever you do, if there is a cool idea behind it, we should make an effort and try not to judge the medium if there is something cool behind it. But the point is that I didn't see much behind what I criticized. And then again, it's my personal opinion, and but we wanted to make it clear with the video of More Than Many Never Won, because it actually looks like something that is AI generated, and we didn't want that. We didn't want to go exactly to the other side of the the equation. So we thought, okay, let's specify that. If it turns into some sort of debate and people will point a finger at us because we're being extreme and exaggerated and blah 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 and pedantic, okay, let's take the risk. Otherwise, everybody will just quiet without saying nothing. I don't want to do that. I feel that I have the right to be annoying. I earned that.
Oh yeah, I think with AI, the thing is with like, especially with music, I think as a fan, one of the most fun things to do is looking into who did what on an album. Like one of my favorite, like one of my friends gifted me Leprosy by Death on CD. He was like, "I've got this CD. Do you want to have it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And like it's got a little info in it, and it's like I was looking through, and it's got original sketches from from the album for the album art, like, and you see how it's been built up. You know, you've got like drafts from like Chuck writing lyrics and stuff like that. And I feel like
That's
if
so
more
cool.
people like adopted AI, you wouldn't get that 20 years in the future. It'd be
No.
like, we went to this website and we typed this prompt. And it's like, that's part of the cool thing about the music as well, is when you look into how much work went into it and who did what, watching it, this little thing build from the ground up. And like, now that it's in your hands, getting to appreciate the final product.
Absolutely. I'm like you. I always, consume the booklets of the CDs that I was buying when I was a teenager. You just and I remember how cool were the thank lists at the time. And I remember how cool it was with my very first records, the very first music I did. I was always so looking forward to the Enrico thanks part because I felt that was the feeling like the ultimate, artist that just produced a CD. I'm getting to the thank list. It means that it's coming out. But yeah, what you're saying is right. You can tell where these people came from. It's like when you're watching a cool documentary, or when you're reading a book about the history of a music genre, and you see about death metal, how there's crazy kids scattered all around the planet in UK, Birmingham, East Coast, West Coast, Sweden, Poland. How did they get together with the tape trading, and they create something when there was really absolutely nothing? It's like when Jeff Walker and Bill Steele talk about the very first recording session of Record Putrefaction. There was the guy that just said they was recording and was like, "What you want me to do with this?" He had no clue. Then, of course, Colin Richardson stepped in and he made that sound. But back then, he must have been like, I don't know, really preaching in the desert, because who's going to be able to record that? That's why it's so cool that every scene has the recording studio that created that legend sound. You've got Morris Sound, you've got Colin Richardson in the UK, you've got Soundlight Studios in Sweden, you have Earth Studios in Poland, even if that's a bit more recent, but it's always cool. We have the same in Rome. I mean, I would say that 16 Cellar Studios were the modern Italian death metal, because people apparently calls it that way, when that sound was crafted. It's history, man.
That's super cool.
And that's like the best part about it, is just learning that history, especially from people who have been around that as well. Like from the start, like you'll find like little key things. Like I've got a few friends that have been into metal since before I was born, and I'll tell them like a fact, and they'll go, "Oh no, that's not true. This is actually what happened," because I remember being there, and it's just like really interesting to hear.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. When I had the chance to talk about some things with Alex Webster, one of the nicest people on the planet, and you compare stories, things that you read things that you might still remember from a fanzine that you read in 1996, or the same happened with with Vader. I had so many questions about, you have to picture this young fellas in 1986 that had to ride a train for 3 hours to get to Warsaw, to get to a music shop where they would be able to listen to Judas Priest on headphones. I mean, these people, they were beyond. They were, on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain, and they still managed to do that. To me, it's priceless. It's that's a cool part of when you're on tour with those bands. You're just there and you just listen to them talking. It's so cool. We've been blessed with that. Let's hope to be also more blessed in the future with more tours.
Absolutely. But as well as being blessed with that, we've also been blessed with the amazing album that is Unextinct. So I want to talk about, because I've been listening to it like on repeat since it's come out, and it's such a journey, and like there's so many different paths that goes down. Like every 2 seconds, you've just got like a different part of the song, and it just like takes you in a completely U-turn to like what you've listened to before. Um, so with the roller coaster that it is, what inspired the album for you guys? Like when you're writing this, because it's super cool, man, honestly.
No, thank you so much, especially for what you said about the roller coaster. My being the writer of the music, for me, my biggest fear is the idea that each and every album sounds the same. There are bands that are just super happy with just repeating their formula, and what's more important, people love them for that, which is, I think, it's a blessing for both. When it comes to me, I always thought that it is your duty as a musician to try to do something, try to look for some sort of evolution. Of course, when you talk about evolution on paper, it seems all nice and perfect and everybody's going to love that. But sometimes evolution takes you to places where people are like, oh, I liked you guys more in the first album, this sort of a thing, which is, again, it's understandable. It's very difficult to have a completely detached, objective view on music, because it's something that you spend on every day, several hours, when you're writing, rewriting, arranging, changing, then the vocals come in, then the structure is changed again. When you're staring at an object for 1 year, you may see things that no one will notice, because the rest of normal people will pay attention to it just a couple of minutes. So as you can see, there are so many things that get mixed together in your head when you're writing, because you think, I mean, I should have the artist integrity and say, I should not care about this. I should only pursue my artistic view. That's bullshit. No one does that. We all want to be successful and loved. And I know a very few bands that actually are sticking with that. And you can tell also by the way they are managing their promotion that they really mean it. They're really artists. To me, they are the artists, because they are totally, utterly uncorruptible. I am a bit more corruptible, I would say. I'm paying more attention to what comes out. But yeah, I mean, you may have noticed that the tracks are longer. Every album that came out, every album that I wrote for Hideous Divinity was some sort of a mirror of that time in music. Because the bands that inspired me for this record are not mostly all of them, but there is always that. Always some band that I'm always listening to. I will never stop listening to. But the bands that influenced me on the last album were not the bands that influenced my writing, my writing process back when I was doing Obeisance Rising or Cobra Verde, 2011, 2013, 14, because thank goodness for that. The music has changed. Music has evolved. Some cool things happened over the last 10, 15 years. And to me, they were a pure revolution. So back then I was more, say, into technical death metal. They just call it. People still labels us as technical death metal. I don't see myself at that, but for a very simple reason, I don't feel like I'm a technical player. To me, technical death metal is obscura, beyond creation. And I'm not even close as a guitarist to be able to play what they're playing. I mean, I'm not even able to tune their guitars right, probably. So I do something different because I'm not that good. But okay, let's just say technical death metal. But what happened in the last years, if you look at the black metal records that came out to me, it was like, my goodness, this is another revolution. And I didn't think that it was possible. That there is a moment when you think, okay, after Origin, you cannot go any faster. It makes no sense. Or after this band, it doesn't get more brutal. And then there are bands that are able to change the game. When I listen to Magla, I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's simple, yet it's revolutionary. I'm like, I can't believe it. I was instantly a fan of them because I'm like, wait. There is a word behind this. What? Let's explore this word. Then, of course, it's your duty and it's complicated. If you love Magla, but you transform your technical death metal entity into something that sounds like Magla, people will be like, dude, what the hell? It sucks. Horrible copy and paste job. Of course, it's tricky. But so many different bands influenced me over these last years that have absolutely nothing to do with death metal per se. And I would say a good 80% of them comes from Poland. So I don't think it's a coincidence. They have something in there that I have to investigate. There is some dark soul or something, I don't know, maybe in their water. I don't know. It's an evil country. The most evil music comes from that country.
No, like it's like I said though, even though there's like long songs on this album, like it feels like 8 minutes just pass you by like that. There's just so much going on. And I listen to like at least, but try to listen to as many albums as possible when it's like New Music Friday. I work from home, so I can just like, bang on all these albums. Like and I'm, searching to find something that I really enjoy. And there's a lot that I enjoy, but it's like it's hard for me now. And I think as I've gotten older and I've listened to so many albums, my bar for what are really impresses me just gets higher and higher. But then obviously I listened to your guys' album and I was like, fucking hell. Like it like I said, just takes you on a whirlwind. Like there's so many different song changes in there. Like I said, you said you weren't that inspired by like tech death and death metal in this album. And I think it comes through because there's a lot of elements I think pull from black metal, they pull from like all different types of metal that kind of make it into something unique and fresh. And I was actually listening to the album and I think you guys messaged me. And then I was like, it's so weird that because you guys messaged me while I was listening to the album, and I was like, well, this is a twist of fate that I have to get you guys on now. But
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
yeah, honestly, it's like I think it's cool because sometimes when you get like 8 minute songs, it can be a bit of a drag sometimes, but like because the intensity and the brutality and the atmosphere keeps it together so well, like it doesn't feel
Yeah,
like 8 minutes
atmosphere.
at all.
I think to me, it became the most important word of all, atmosphere. Because atmosphere, I noticed that when you can get more faster, you can get more brutal, more, I don't know, heavier or something. You have to look for what could be the next game changer. Then there is a record, and I know every time you mention it, there is a debate, just people just coming across. But one Behemoth, a band that I've always worshipped, I had the chance to see them back in 2000 when they were supporting Satyricon, and they were still kind of, very underground. But you could tell from back then, 24 years ago, that they were like destined to success with huge capital S. Then they did Evangelion, which was supposed to be like the most perfect album, the most the perfection made. And then they made The Satanist, which a lot of people love to hate. But there's people refusing to understand what the concept of evolution, of progress is. Because to me, it's one of the most important albums that were ever made because they showed the next level. And if you look behind an album like The Satanist, you'll see that growing scene, those bands Behemoth were touring with at the time. They toured with Magla, they toured with Bolzer, they toured with Secrets of the Moon. And they managed to take that influence and to convert it into something that will still Behemoth, but it will sound fresher. I don't know. And the atmosphere, it was all there. Plus, they are so bloody smart because they are just slowing things down. No one realizes that. So, they made basically their pension plan. They're going to be able to play that music until they're 70 because they're smart. They're smart and creative. And that's what you want to look at: atmosphere, what people would remember, what people, we are basically fighting all the time to have people not to click to the next video on YouTube or to skip you on the Spotify playlist. So our mission has become to hook you to the song so you stay and listen longer than 7 seconds. Yeah, you do that. It's tough, but it's a challenge accepted. You have to do it. And I thought that instead of doing the same old thing, brutal blast beat and stuff, and maybe there is space for something new. Again, it's my personal view of my influences. And who knows what's going to happen next? Maybe I'll go back to shorter songs, but I think this is a part of me now. I just take it, with just as some sort of a boutade, some sort of an exaggeration. But I may look more forward to the new Ulcerate album rather than the new Nile or new Suffocation album, because I know in the first case I don't know what's gonna be, but in the second case I think I know what's gonna be like. They're just great old musicians, keep on doing their music, selling their product to newer generations. There's not going to be that sort of a turn that makes you feel like, whoa, look at that. Have you listened to this? I don't have that anymore with the bands that I mentioned since many years. No, I'm not even going to mention how important the albums that they made in the early days were, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. I definitely agree with like the shift that you mentioned like earlier, where especially like in black metal, in just music as a whole as well. But one like band for me that like kind of got me back into the black metal, because like before as a genre I didn't really listen to it that much, but it was Mole when they released Diorama. Like that was one of the only albums that I listened to like quite recently where I was like actually blown away, because it's on paper you wouldn't think it would go together. It was like shoegaze with like black metal, but when they were mended together, the themes and both really mended well to it. And I remember popping that on and being like, okay, let's just check out the first song. And before I knew it, I'd finished the entire album, because I was there like it was just it felt so fresh and so like new. Where I was there like, you know what, like there's some
Right.
really good bands coming out at the moment.
Absolutely.
And it just reinvitalized the passion for it.
Yeah, exactly. There are some bands that they're not reinventing the wheel, but they seem to be the right band at the right time. They make great choices with the way they sound. I just mentioned one before, and by coincidence, the other one is a duo, and that is Inquisition. Now, let's of course keep the bad things related to the bands. Right now, I just want to focus on the music. These bands, again, without reinventing the wheel, they did something that it was revolutionary inside the genre that was supposed to be even more, monothematic than death metal. Because I think at a certain point, death metal became also a bit too plasticky with the production, all triggered or all super compressed. And I think the newer generations were looking for, they wanted to go back to the dynamics, back to the more organic sound. And it's cool because, in a couple of days, we're going to do our release party here in Rome. And I remember that the last concert we played in Rome was, we don't play in Rome very often. It was like 2 years ago, but it was with bands that were more on the avant-garde side of death metal. They were all younger, and they were in their music. You could see how much they were despising our music. Their choices were like totally opposite. It looks like they took what we did over the years and they just smash it to the ground and we're jumping on pieces. But that's how you create something new. So I was actually really happy. I complimented them saying, you guys are really, you're taking everything that we did and you're throwing through the trash, and that's great. And they were like, is this guy, I don't know, is he fishing for compliments, or does he want to start a fight, or what you're trying to say? I said, it's cool. It's cool. What you're doing, it's a very good idea. Some things to me are a bit too, I have to say, I'm not a fan of everything. There are bands like Colin Marstow's Artificial Brain or Cruel Eyes. Some things I like, but the production to me sometimes it's just too weird. I think I understand what you're trying to do, but I like cool production, and this what you're doing is a bit too weird to me. And it's a statement, so it's cool. And by the way, I remember seeing Möll in a festival in Denmark. I didn't know them. They put up a concert that was like, my goodness, these guys are pro. I heard of them before.
Yeah,
It's one of those.
one.
Yeah, it's one of those gigs that you think, okay, I'm in Denmark. It's a Danish festival. They were one of the headliners, and of course, not everybody was supposed to know them outside of Denmark. But I'm like, okay, they deserve the spot. See, it's cool to play in festivals like that, because you find out bands that you didn't know, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna write this name down and look for them at home.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh yeah.
I want to get into as well. I know that a huge inspiration on some of the lyrics on the past albums have been like, David Lynch was something that inspired some of the past albums, and I want to know, like, for this album in particular, were you looking for films
Yeah.
for influence, and was it David Lynch again, or was it someone new, or did you take inspiration from something completely non-film related for this release?
Oh, there's always a movie. Meaning, cinema is the most important thing for a concept in an Hideous Divinity album. Then, of course, we changed a bit the trajectory over the years, and we started to tether the movie, the cinema, to some more literature aspect. So when I talked to the guys about Nosferatu, and of course they all loved the idea, because who doesn't like anything that has to do with Nosferatu? I was working on something a bit more complex on the thematics, because the concept cannot simply be in 2024 the vampire. Okay, duh. It sounds, maybe it was cool. I don't know. 50 years ago, it was considered something original. But what you're going to do today? Talk about the vampire and the vampire sucking blood and I don't know, but you name it. So a thing occurred to me. If you think about it, I don't know how much you guys are into movies, but
Massive. We're both massive movie buffs out and everything.
then I'm going to make you an example regarding the concept of Nosferatu, the way we took it to, the way we changed it into something that doesn't represent the monster anymore, but behind the monster, you've got actually a representation of nature that basically steps on mankind. Is what Eugene Tucker calls the world not for us. So something that escapes our control, and sometimes even our conscience or understanding. It's like every generation needs a certain kind of monster or a certain kind of character. Just think about Batman, okay? So we have the Batman of the 50s, of the comics, also the 50s, the movies, what's his name? The guy, the John Wiener. And then you have the Batman of Tim Burton, the one, early 90s. Then you have those horrible movies made in the 90s with a lot of, crappy CGI and terrible acting. And then you have the Batman of Christopher Nolan, which is, to me, remains and will always be the unbeatable, undisputed champion.
Agreed.
Because you just can't do a better movie than The Dark Knight, because you just can't. You can't. It's the best movie ever. So no one is entitled to their opinion. I'm not very democratic when it comes to movies. And then because it was the right kind of Batman for that moment of of culture, of cinema, it was like the representation of the hero the way it was supposed to be. Then you have the most recent Batman, which I was not fond of at all, and not because I don't like Robert Pattinson. I think he's a great artist. A great actor. I just didn't like the movie itself. But that was very successful because it was the Batman for a younger generation. So every concept that has to do with a horror movie, with a character, with a movie, with whatever, the important thing is that we bring it into, we examine, we explore the concept in a way that it feels like a real, actual for the audience right now. So if you just talk about the vampire, you're just, okay, there's a band talking about the vampire. But if there are people that are actually willing to dig deeper into a concept, they will see the parallel between the vampire and the nature, the the numinous one, also the vampire, how it's represented in the Werner Herzog movie, which is basically the remake of the Murnau movie, and that is more about sadness, about the sadness of being unable to feel feelings, to feel love. Klaus Kinski portraying the vampire, the Nosferatu in the Herzog's movie, says to Lucy, I would love to be part of the union between you and Jonathan, but he's refused. So we have the sadness of the monster. And Werner Herzog has always been a director that was really paying attention to the force of nature as something that is completely detached from us. He will see the Amazon forest. He would see the rotting, animals, creatures stepping on each other. When he filmed The Grizzly Man, the documentary about that crazy guy that just went to live with grizzlies and he was killed by one of them because he wanted to help them. He sees a nature that's basically ruthless. And that's like, well, okay, this is beyond Nosferatu, but it's still cool. I see some connection with it. I hope other people does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think with music in general, like I think the best place for inspiration sometimes is movies, because the best, like at the end of the day, they're both trying to achieve the same goal but in a different way, and that's just escapism, and movies are the best form of escapism in a way. So like I think if you ever stuck on what you want to write or want inspiration, weirdly watch a movie, because you want to see what actually goes into, you want to see like how that takes you out of where you are at the moment. What does it do to do that? And so like when you put that into music, it just makes your writing a lot easier, because it's like, okay, well, they do this bit in the movie to make you feel this way, and the reason why it works is because I saw it. I saw how the character reacted, but how can I do that with music? Well, you could write bits where I'm losing what I'm trying to explain. I know how it sounds in my head. I can't fucking
You
get
mean
it
that
out.
it's easier to communicate your idea by using a movie rather than music, because you have a one dimension that is missing, that is the visual dimension?
Yeah, exactly. But I think you can do the same with music, but in an entirely different way, but still looking at the methods that they used in the movie
Oh
to
yeah. Oh
to
no, that I
achieve the same
fully agree.
effect.
Yeah, there are plenty examples of that for me. It's and I think there is another word that can help us describe what we're talking about, and that movie is language. Basically, when you, or if you want to be more pedantic, like I like to be all the time, is the word poetics. Poetics comes from a Greek word that means to create. So when we're talking about the poetics of Hideous Divinity, or the language, we're basically talking about the code that we're using to communicate. So the song is the expression, and we're using a language to move into something that is death metal, but we do it with our own words, so to say. And when you're good, and I mean really good, and I don't know if I'll ever be that good, you can be distinguished separated by the rest of others, and people will see that there's something different. And what I call that different is the language. It takes a couple of frames to understand if that movie is from Ari Aster or Steven Spielberg or Nolan sometimes. Or Scorsese. You're like, wait. You may be distracted. You don't know about the movie, but you're like, yeah, this is when people say this is 100% Scorsese or this is 100% Kubrick or whatever. It's because they have a language. Is there, so many things together: the photography, the way the camera is following things, and I think that aspect always excited me. And when I find that aspect in music, I'm like, I'm so happy because I could tell that it was that band even before I was sure. And yeah, I mean, and it's so cool when you say something. It's 2024 and we are still surprised by this kind of art. The movie that the British movie that won 2 Oscars. For best foreign movie and for best sound design, I think The Zone of Interest. Have you
Oh,
have you watched it?
incredible film. That left
In
me absolutely gobsmacked after that. Oh my God.
Absolutely amazing.
Terrifying,
20,
but really incredible.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Terrifying. 2024, and you can do something new and scary about the Holocaust. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. It was Jonathan Glazer, absolute genius. The idea, just the way the sound design is used into that movie, and then you find out that Rudolf Hose kept engines working all the time next to his house, so the family won't hear the screams and the shots in Auschwitz. That's genius, genius. Oh, you watch those movies, of course, you are blown away by the tragedy of it, but at the same time, you're thinking, this is so great. It makes you feel like it motivates you to be part of something artistic because you think, see, there is hope. It's 2024 and 30 years and some after Schindler's List, and this is fresh. I loved it so much. So
Oh,
much.
absolutely, man. And I think with music as well, like, to this point of like visualization, when I listened to your album and we talked about atmosphere and why it's so important to you guys, and it comes through because I think for me, like obviously we talked about movies and you like you said, you get a visual DNA of that director, like, oh, that's that's Scorsese, that's Nolan, but I think of music, I almost view it like I view books because it's like it's a movie, but in your head, when you listen to music, you're picturing like a place in your head. You're picturing where you
Hmm.
imagine this music to be. That's the soundtrack to that. And I wasn't always like a big reader. I only started reading recently. I did audiobooks and stuff, but I wanted
Uh-huh.
to actually try and get into reading because I've always been into movies and games and music, but I was like, I'm gonna really give this a crack. And it reminded me of when I listened to music because you sort of painting this movie in your head and especially a great album that focuses on atmosphere. It's not about being brutal, it's about atmosphere and
Yeah.
taking you into this world. And that's what I love about music. And not every album can do that successfully, but definitely your album did for sure.
Oh, that's what, again, thank you. And that's what I'm always trying. If I don't have that feeling, it means that the song is going nowhere. And there is something, sometimes you have to be strong enough just to draw a line or to take the thing that you've been working on over the last 2 weeks and just erase it because it's like, yes, but I worked so hard on it. Yeah, but if it doesn't sound well, just grow a pair and get rid of it. It sucks. I know you work a lot on it. Sometimes you have to make choices. And what I like is when the right choice is to take something out of the picture, erase something instead of adding it.
For
Because
sure.
I know it doesn't look like because you see all songs that are super long and stuff, but trust me when I'm telling you that I simplified a lot of things because I thought this is just redundant. You lose the point. Yeah, I am, as you may have guessed by now, I'm a strong supporter of rewriting. To me, there is no such thing as I wrote a song, it's perfect the first time. I don't think it ever happened, or maybe once or twice in my entire, you know, writing life that I wrote something that was just okay the very first draft, and it didn't suffer any changes until we finally recorded it. I don't think it ever happened because it's tough out there, You cannot just put two raves and just make it sound brutal and give it a good production. it takes time to do an album. My goodness, the guys hated me for the time that I took to write this last album, but I don't, it's what you're gonna do about it. I'm slow. I'm a very slow writer,
No, I
and
respect it, man.
I'm
Right.
questioning all the time everything that I'm doing. Like, no, this is not good enough. And the guys were like just begging me, please, we want to listen a new song. Yes, but it's not ready yet. Make it ready. Finish it. We are out of schedule already. We are gonna miss all the deadlines. So I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever.
No, I respect that, man. So
Oh yeah.
we got one last question for you.
Mhm.
So it's one that we always like to leave it on. But if you're in a zombie apocalypse with only your bandmates and you had to choose one member to be most reliant on and one member to be least reliant on, who would it be and why?
One band member.
Yeah, so one band member that you have to just leave, leave them from the group, and one member that you would take with you. Expedition through the apocalypse.
I'll take the doctor, of course. My goodness.
I was gonna say
Oh yeah.
that's
The
a
doctor's
very
the safest like
But
grab ever.
knowing me, I have the perception of myself. I think I will die first season for sure.
best season.
If I'm gonna be just like super lucky, I'm gonna die like end of mid-season finale, perhaps. But that's still gonna be first season. I don't see myself going very far away from in a zombie apocalypse. My wife, she's Ukrainian. Trust me, she will make it until the very the very end of the show.
Yo, you didn't pick one band member that you be least reliant on, so you're not actually allowed to pick yourself.
The drummer, always.
Always
The
the
drummer
drummer.
would probably, still practicing or being on the clouds when he's assaulted by zombies, and it would be a blessing for him because he won't even realize that he's fucked because he's living on another planet. So yeah, I'll always live, no matter if it's Eduardo or Giulio, the drummer that we had before. I'm sorry, drummers are doomed.
Well, I've got a theory on it. I think out of all the band members, right, in that sort of scenario, who's the one that's the most likely to have tinnitus and really poor hearing? Is probably going to be the drummer. So in those
For the same
scenarios,
reason.
fucked.
No, you're right. It's a very romantic way of putting it. Probably it will become the chief of zombies and without even pretending to be one. You just know. That's I'll ask the same question to the guys tomorrow. Let's see what they think, and I'll
Yeah.
let you know.
Just don't tell them what you picked, I guess, or just don't tell your drummer.
Hmm?
Don't tell your drummer
What?
that you picked him. But
No,
yeah,
but
thank
zombie
you so much,
apocalypse, my
man.
goodness.
Yeah, it's been amazing having you on, by the way. Like I said, Unextinct, absolute masterpiece, and it's really nice to still get these fresh albums in 2024. There's been a million albums come out, but this was an album that I stuck on, and it hasn't left my brain. So I'm gonna look forward to keeping on spinning that. So yeah, thank you. It's been honestly great chatting with you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the chat. I hope it was the same for you. Sorry if I always talk too much when I'm passionate about things. So
Yeah, we like that.
it means that I really enjoy the conversation. So thank you again. Thank you so much. And, see you around.
Yeah, all
Hopefully,
the
man.
best.
It's been great having you on.
Thank you again.
Yeah,
Bye.
well,
Talk
hopefully
soon.
we'll see you on a UK tour, and we'll be there.
Oh, totally. Bye bye then.
Oh yeah, take care, man. All the
Thank you.
best.